We often talk about IT problems, but maybe we need to reframe that because these days, they're really not just IT problems anymore, are they? Think about that server humming away somewhere. Seems distant, right? But what if I told you that some, well, seemingly small technical mistakes often made by system administrators, what if those are actually creating huge business risks that affect everyone? So like impacts on, the company's finances, its reputation, even just its ability to function day to day. So today we're doing a deep dive. We're looking closely at this report, Business Risks of Admin Mistakes on Servers. And our mission really is to unpack maybe 20 common but pretty critical admin mistakes, and more importantly, connect them to the business consequences, which can be staggering. This isn't just technical stuff. It's about things like compliance failures, big data breaches, financial loss, damage to the brand. Think of this as maybe your shortcut to getting up to speed on this. We want to give you some immediate insight into where the biggest risks are hiding, often in plain sight. You might actually be shocked how a simple oversight can cause so much trouble.
It really is fascinating, isn't it? How many of these major issues, they don't come from some super sophisticated cyber attack. Often it starts with the basics, like the really basic stuff, how we manage who gets in, access.
That's a great point, and it leads us right into our first big category of mistakes, credential management failures. Basically messing up how we handle the keys to the kingdom, so to speak.
Yeah.
What's the first big misstep you see here?
Well, number one, have to be using shared accounts, where multiple admins use the same login, same root account, same admin password. The immediate problem, accountability just vanishes completely. If something goes wrong, how do you know who did it? You can't. And that leads straight to compliance issues, regulatory fines, because your audit trail is gone.
Right. No traceability, like everyone having the same master key.
Exactly. Convenient, maybe, but risky.
So building on that, mistake number 2, relying on simple password-based authentication, like just weak passwords, or reusing them. People still do that.
Oh, absolutely. All the time. And it's basically like leaving the front door unlocked for attackers. Weak passwords are the low-hanging fruit. Easy targets for brute force attacks, credential stuffing, where they use lists of leaked passwords. The business impact, well, it massively increases your risk. Credential theft, unauthorized access, which can lead to those devastating data breaches we hear about, and the reputational damage. That can last for years. Seriously.
Which logically brings us to number 3, ignoring multi-factor authentication, MFA. Just relying on a username and password alone. That sounds incredibly risky today.
It is. Honestly, it's probably the single biggest reason account takeovers happen so often. Without MFA, systems are just wide open. It makes you so much more vulnerable to things like phishing, where someone gets tricked into giving up their login details, and once an account is taken over, that can cause massive operational disruptions, serious financial losses. It's a fundamental security layer. People sometimes see it as annoying, but not having it. That's the real problem.
Yeah, the annoyance factor versus the catastrophe factor.
Okay,
this next one, number 4. It really highlights how simple errors cause big problems. Storing credentials in plain text, like passwords in sticky notes or spreadsheets, or even scripts. How does that still happen? And what's the real danger?
It often comes down to convenience, maybe lack of awareness, but yeah, it's a ticking time bomb. Those files, the notes, the spreadsheets, they become super easy targets for insiders, maybe, like a disgruntled employee. Or just malware scanning the system for unsecured data. Just think about it. One compromised computer, one leaked file, and suddenly an attacker might have access to everything. Full system compromise.
Wow, the simplicity is deceptive. Okay, number 5, leaving SSH keys unprotected. These are those digital keys for secure remote access, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes stored without passphrases or just in insecure places.
Exactly. And if an SSH key gets stolen because it wasn't protected, maybe it didn't have a passphrase, well, attackers can get persistent access. And it often looks legitimate, so it's stealthy. Unlike a password you might change, a stolen key can work for a long time, making these breaches incredibly hard to spot. It's like a hidden backdoor.
Persistent and hidden. Not good. Okay, and the last one for this section, number 6, not rotating credentials regularly. Using the same passwords, API keys, SSH keys, forever. Does it really matter if you don't think they've been compromised?
Oh, it absolutely matters.
Huh.
This creates long-term unaddressed risks. Think about it. A credential could have been leaked months, even years ago, and you might not know. If you never rotate it, it just sits there, a potential vulnerability waiting to be exploited. Regular rotation just shrinks that window of opportunity for attackers using old, possibly stolen credentials.
So looking at these first 6 mistakes, all about credentials, the digital keys, what's the big picture for our listener here? Why should they care?
Well, for you, the listener, the key thing is These aren't just small technical details. They're fundamental security gaps. The simplicity of these mistakes, like a weak password or a shared account, it's misleading. They can literally give attackers the keys to your entire kingdom. And the business consequences. We're talking fines, data loss, operational chaos. It far outweighs any perceived convenience of cutting corners.
Okay, so we've talked about the keys. Now let's talk about the doors themselves. Our next section, the open doors risky access methods and tools. This is about how admins connect to servers and the dangers when those methods aren't secure. Kicking us off, mistake number 7. Using remote desktop protocol, RDP, directly on the internet. Why is this so bad and why do people do it?
RDP is super common, very useful, but exposing it directly with no restrictions right onto the public internet, that's like putting out a welcome mat for attackers. It's one of the most scanned for, most targeted services out there for that initial way in. We see it constantly linked to ransomware attacks, major system downtime, which means serious financial pain and obviously damage to the company's reputation. It's just too easy a target for automated attacks.
Makes sense, just broadcasting vulnerability. Okay, mistake number 8. Using outdated remote access tools. So relying on old software, maybe unpatched tools with known security holes. What's the direct risk there?
The risk is immediate and high. Because these vulnerabilities are known, they're often publicly documented. Attackers don't need to find a new way in. The instructions are already out there, essentially. So it leads directly to unauthorized access, data breaches, simply because the weakness is well known and easy to exploit.
Got it. Don't use old tools with known holes. Next, number 9. Using VPNs without additional security layers. So maybe you have a VPN, but you're not also using MFA or checking the security of the device connecting. Isn't the VPN tunnel enough?
A VPN is good, it encrypts the connection, but it's not a silver bullet on its own. If those VPN login details get stolen maybe through phishing again, then an attacker can use that VPN tunnel just like a legitimate employee. Once they're inside that secure tunnel, they can potentially move around freely within your network. So yeah, it dramatically increases the risk of a full compromise. That initial breach becomes a gateway.
Okay, that clarifies things. Number 10 is a huge one, especially now with so much remote work. Allowing logins from personal or unsecured devices, letting admins connect from laptops that aren't managed, maybe aren't patched. What's the danger cascade there?
Yeah, this is a critical weak link. Personal devices often don't have the same security controls as company-issued ones.
Right. So imagine a personal laptop gets infected with malware from, I don't know, browsing the web. If that device then connects to the corporate network to access servers, well, that infection can spread. It could lead to data breaches or even trigger a ransomware attack across the whole infrastructure. It's like inviting a sick person into a clean room.
A very vivid analogy. Okay, and for this section, mistake 11. Not restricting login locations. Basically allowing logins from any IP address anywhere in the world instead of maybe trusted locations. Is geo-blocking still a valuable layer?
Absolutely. It's a very valuable layer. Think about it. If stolen credentials can be used from anywhere, they're much more dangerous. It makes it harder to spot suspicious activity if logins are coming from unexpected places. Restricting access to, say, known corporate IP ranges or specific countries, that can really shrink the attack surface and make anomalies stand out much more clearly. So summing up this section on access methods, beyond the tech details, why is this important for you, the listener, to grasp?
Well, for you, what this shows is that the pathway into your systems is just as critical as the keys used to open the door. If you neglect how people connect, you can leave a huge security hole, even if your passwords and keys are strong. It's about securing the whole access journey.
That's a great transition, because once someone is on that pathway and through the door, how much access should they actually have? This brings us to Section 3, the principle of least privilege over granting access. This is all about the big problems that happen when admins have way more access than they need or have it all the time. Where do we start here?
We start with mistake number 12. Not using privileged access management or PAM solutions. This means people are likely accessing critical systems directly without a system in place to control, audit, and limit that access in time.
Okay, so what's the real-world impact of not having PAM? What does that lead to?
It leads to what we call privilege sprawl, or just massive exposure of powerful accounts. Without PAM, you often lack central control. Who has access to what? Why? For how long? It gets messy. This is a direct path to failing compliance audits for regulations like PCI DSS, HIPAA, NIST. They all require strict controls here. And, crucially, it significantly ups the risk of insider threats, whether they're malicious or just accidental, because there's no mechanism enforcing just enough access.
Got it. Okay, mistake 13. Overusing persistent administrator accounts. So giving people permanent admin rights instead of just-in-time or GIT access. What's the practical risk?
It massively increases your attack surface. Think of a permanent admin account like a loaded weapon just lying around. Even if it's not being used right now, it's still a target. If an attacker compromises one of those accounts, they have a permanent, powerful foothold. This makes it much easier for them to escalate their privileges further or move laterally across your network if they get in somewhere else first. It's like leaving the master key hanging on a hook by the door instead of locked away until needed.
That makes sense. This next one, 14, feels almost fundamental. Allowing direct root or administrator logins, the highest level of access, directly. Why is that so dangerous?
Enabling direct login as root on Linux or the top-level administrator on Windows.
Yeah.
It bypasses the whole idea of least privilege. If that super powerful account gets compromised, the attacker instantly has complete, total control of that system. Full stop. They can do anything. Wipe data, shut things down, install anything, and use it as a launch pad to attack other systems. It's basically game over for that machine.
Game over. Okay. Mistake 15 seems related, but maybe more subtle. Granting excessive privileges, like logging in with full admin rights just to do a simple task that only needs limited access.
Right. It just magnifies the potential damage if something goes wrong. If that account gets compromised by malware or the user makes an accidental mistake or maybe it's an insider threat, the amount of harm they can do is directly related to the level of privilege they have. If they only needed read access but they have full write and delete permission, well, a slip-up or a malicious action becomes much more destructive.
Okay, number 16. Skipping bastion hosts or jump servers. So accessing critical servers directly from a workstation instead of going through a secured, monitored intermediate server. How does that hurt security?
This basically exposes all your critical servers directly. Instead of having one, maybe two hardened and closely watched entry points, the bastion or jump host, every single server becomes a potential direct target from potentially less secure admin workstations. It also makes it much easier for attackers to move laterally once they compromise one system. There are fewer choke points where you can monitor or block their movement. Containing a breach becomes much harder.
Right, spreading the risk instead of containing it. Okay, number 17. Not using just-in-time or JIT access controls. Giving people standing, always-on access instead of temporary, approved access for specific tasks. Seems efficient, maybe, but what's the security trade-off?
It might seem efficient, but the security downside is huge. Those admin accounts that are active but maybe not being used right now, they're prime targets for credential theft. JIT access flips this. Privileges are granted only when needed, only for a specific approved reason, and only for the time required. This massively shrinks the window of exposure. If credentials do get compromised, their useful lifespan for an attacker is dramatically reduced.
Minimizing that window. Makes sense. And finally for this section, number 18. Neglecting zero trust principles. Basically trusting users and devices by default once they're inside, instead of continuously verifying every access attempt. Why is this still a common issue?
Well, zero trust is a mindset shift, right? Moving away from that old castle and moat idea where everything inside the walls is trusted. If you trust by default, an attacker who gets just one foothold inside your network can often move around relatively easily, escalating privileges, finding sensitive data. Because they're assumed to be trusted, zero trust says, never trust, always verify. Every user, every device, every connection attempt needs to be verified every single time, regardless of where it's coming from. It makes that lateral movement much, much harder for attackers.
Okay, so pulling this section together, the principle of least privilege. What's the core idea you want the listener to take away?
The core idea is simple. Every permission that isn't strictly necessary, every bit of access that's granted just in case or left active indefinitely, it's a potential weakness. It's a door left unlocked or a window left open. Understanding this principle, giving only the minimum access needed for only as long as needed, is absolutely fundamental to securing any digital environment. Whether you're an admin or just a user, it matters. It reduces the blast radius if something bad happens.
Makes perfect sense. But even if you get credentials right, access methods locked down, and privileges minimized, you still need to know what's actually happening, right?
Yeah.
Which brings us to our final section, the blind spots, lack of monitoring, and policy. This is about oversight, or the lack of it, and not having clear rules.
Exactly. And mistake number 19 is a big one, failing to monitor and audit login activity. Basically, operating without keeping track of who is logging in to what systems, when, and from where.
And if you're flying blind like that, what's the real business cost?
The cost is delayed detection. Without proper logs and active monitoring, suspicious activity, maybe unauthorized access, it just goes completely unnoticed, sometimes for months or even longer. This means when a security incident is finally discovered, the damage is usually far worse. More data lost, more systems compromised, and bigger compliance fines because you often can't even prove what happened or when. It's like trying to secure a building without any cameras or even a sign-in sheet at the front desk. You have no idea who's coming or going.
Yeah, you can't react to what you can't see. Okay, last one, number 20. Ignoring session timeouts. Letting administrative sessions stay logged in indefinitely. Seems like a small technical setting.
It is technically simple to configure, but yeah, it gets overlooked surprisingly often. The risk. An open, unattended admin session is a golden opportunity. Maybe the admin just walks away from their computer for a minute. Or worse, their machine gets compromised by malware while the session is active. An attacker or malware can then use that live, privileged session to make unauthorized changes, steal data, launch further attacks. It's the digital equivalent of leaving your running car unlocked with the keys inside.
Okay, so this final category, monitoring, policies, timeouts. Why are these blind spots so critical for you, the listener, to understand?
What it really underscores for you is that even if you have great security tools and policies on paper, without vigilance, without automated checks and balances like monitoring and timeouts, those measures can be easily undermined, either by simple human oversight or just the lack of enforcement. It's about having visibility and control, not just hoping everyone follows the rules.
So we've covered a lot of ground. 20 critical admin mistakes on servers. We went from handling credentials to access methods, the whole idea of least privilege, and finally, monitoring and policy. And I think it's become really clear these aren't just techie details. They are fundamental business risks.
Yeah.
Real vulnerabilities with potentially devastating consequences.
Absolutely. I think the core insight, the real aha moment maybe, is realizing how these often small, seemingly isolated admin errors can connect and cascade. One mistake can create an opening for another, leading to really catastrophic outcomes for the business. We're talking about, huge fines, massive data breaches that destroy customer trust, operational shutdowns that halt business, and serious damage to reputation that can take years, if ever, to fully recover from. Understanding these pitfalls, not just as IT issues, but as core strategic business risks, is just essential for anyone involved with technology today.
So as you, our listener, think about these 20 common pitfalls we've discussed, maybe ask yourself, could any of these mistakes be silently creating risk, eroding trust, or opening doors in the digital systems you depend on every single day? And what steps can you take maybe to start asking the right questions? Questions about these hidden risks, moving past the jargon to really grasp the true business implications. Because ultimately, protecting these systems is about protecting the business itself.